need to consider other sources of funding because the university itself cannot carry that burden. We are owed between 500 million and 1 billion rand at any time in debt.
And finally, Israeli warplanes have struck a number of targets in Syria, including military positions south of the capital, Damascus. Israel's defense minister confirmed the aerial bombardment, saying it was acting to defend its regional border. The BBC's Will Leonard has the details.
Local media said Israeli planes targeted a military site around 20 kilometres south of Damascus and a town in the southern Daraa province. Israel said it attacked weapons as part of its aim to, in its words, pacify southern Syria so it didn't become like southern Lebanon. A war monitor has reported at least 2 people killed. Israel's attacks came on the same day Syria's new rulers held a landmark conference on the future direction of the country as they try to rebuild after years of civil war and the ousting of Bashar al-Assad in December. That featured a demand for Israel to withdraw its forces currently occupying parts of southern Syria.
Recapping the top story, the neighbours of the 6 people who were washed away in Lamontville during last night's heavy rains say they are shocked. Emergency service teams have recovered the bodies of 3 of the 6 people. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're a sealing and partition company. I like OUTsurance. They have that personal touch. In addition to the great service they give me, they've also saved me and my company 3,266 rand per month. Guys, make that call. It's well worth it.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover. Or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. Super Sports Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The Super Sports Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. Super Sports Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
My most enduring memory is of my great-grandmother, Mankuruanga, my Gugu, the matriarch of the Musida family. My Gugu, Obongwanzeru, as she was affectionately known, was a respected village elder whose stare could put the fear of God into anyone she encountered. But to me, she was the person that I loved the most. My favorite person, the person who gave me my voice, the person who taught me how to think. She told me the importance of using my voice, how I needed to be heard, how I had to use it respectfully and knowledgeably. First know and understand, then talk, she would say to me. She emphasized the importance of standing up for myself. But not only for myself, standing up for other people too. People have been wronged, embarrassed, humiliated, and mistreated. I learned social justice on my Gugu's knee. In between those lessons, she would tell me stories about our ancestors, where I grew up, how they carved a life for themselves in the small village. She also taught me the importance of education. Wangwanzeru gave me my voice. She helped shape the thoughts behind the voice that I use today. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, was an amazing woman. She made me realize that I wanted to use my voice to speak out against injustice, to speak out for those who could not speak for themselves.
That is Shudufadzo Musida, former Miss South Africa author and a voice or an advocate for mental health. And it's 9:09. Welcome to the Talking Point on this Wednesday morning, Wednesday edition of the show, as we lead conversations that move us. I'm Cathy Mohlahlana, and driving this, what is it? Is it a vehicle? Yeah, you can only drive a vehicle technically, right? Driving a vehicle right through midday. That deteriorated very quickly. I know sometimes I get lost in my thoughts and I have to be, brought back, like, wake up, Cathy, come back to earth. Anyway, coming up on the show, we'll start off with the open line, as we always do, your national roundtable. In fact, what I'm going to do for that is share some reflections with you, or I at least want your reflections when it comes to the conversation around fighting crime in the country. Just yesterday, we spoke to the police minister, Senzo Mchunu. It was in the final hour of the show, and there were some comments that he made that I thought, well, I'd be very interested to hear what the SAFM community has to say about where the police feel they're not being supported by communities and how they want communities to help in the fight against crime. So coming up in the second hour of the show for Citizens Corner, we'll be looking at agriculture, but in particular farming, and we'll be looking at how female and youth rural farmers are helping to empower their communities through agriculture. A very important conversation to have, and much of it, of course, often with very little support. So we'll hear from these young people and also these female farmers in terms of their own journeys and how they've used that opportunity, right, to earn a living, to then further extend to their broader communities. Often what many of our listeners will say is that it boggles the mind how we as a country have the incredibly high hunger levels that we do. Nobody in this country should be going to bed hungry. What has happened to some of the skills that we would be able to teach, that we have historically been able to teach and pass on to generations when it comes to being able to sustain our own livelihood. So we'll have that conversation in the second hour of the show. And in the final hour of the show, we're in conversation with Crispin Phiri, who is the spokesperson for the Department of International Relations. Or rather is the spokesperson for the Minister of International Relations, Minister Ronald Lamola. We're going to be unpacking South Africa's position in as far as it relates to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. You would have seen recently, just last week, South Africa, in fact it wasn't last week, it was just this Monday, on the 25th. So you would have seen the voting in the United Nations, where South Africa has voted for a resolution that very clearly condemns Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Previously, we have abstained from such resolutions in the United Nations. And then, of course, there is, the calls that have been taking place between our own president and Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky, and President Ramaphosa extending a visit to him to South Africa. And it comes in the context of the shifting geopolitical landscape, where we have the US also taking a more toned down approach when it comes to the conflict, and at least its condemnation of Russia in as far as this conflict is concerned. So things do seem to be shifting. We just want to know, where does South Africa sit now? What is our position now, and what informs that position? So we'll be in conversation then with Crispin Phiri in the final hour of the show. Of course, it is the open line. You're more than welcome to raise any matter of national interest. Put it on the National Roundtable. The number to dial this morning, 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. So in our conversation with the police minister yesterday, reflecting on the state of crime, the latest statistics that the department has unveiled, and just really also giving listeners the opportunity to engage with the minister. A number of our listeners from the Western Cape complained about the escalating violence amongst communities, gang-infested communities, and how, this was continuing at such a rapid scale. And, they were asking for more police intervention because communities are under siege from gangs. The minister responded to this by saying that communities needed to come together in a much stronger and more unified way than they are right now. Because in the absence of communities coming together, police would be very limited in what they're able to do. So I want to play a part of that conversation for you. And I just want to know from you, how else can communities be contributing to fighting crime in this country? What is it, if we are to fully hear what the minister is saying, what is it that communities can do that they have not done that can assist in helping reduce the crime levels in the country?
The communities, like you hear the caller, he says, were scared. That is the word he used. They even know the vehicle. Probably they know one or two people who are there, and they say they're scared. Now, let me just talk a little about being scared. They are so scared to a point where they can't even inform the minister who and what are the number plates and so on, and yet they are the people who are on the ground.
But Minister, that's because the police have failed to protect them. Historically, there is a failure there. There's a mistrust there because the police have in some instances been part of the organized crime syndicates. They've helped them, they've helped protect them.
They say so. When we meet communities like in large numbers, they tend to say, we can't give you the names because police go around and they tell, or some police, and they tell these people to say what we have been reporting or what we have reported. And so based on all of that, we still are saying we need communities to come together in their own way and form a block. In other words, be visible and be heard. That they reject crime, they don't want crime.
No, Minister, that is not fair. That is not fair at all. Because you have communities that raise their voices all the time.
No. Hear me talking.
Okay.
They raise their voices all the time, but there is no united front. There is no united platform from which they do it. I'm not blaming and I'm not shifting blame, but I'm talking about what we need. And
in what form? In the form of community policing forums, in the form of that community policing forums that are under-supported, by the way, under-resourced. So these are already disadvantaged communities that you are saying should find a way of getting together and speak in one voice so that what can happen? The police are going to be able to listen to them more when they're speaking under this, umbrella of a body versus when they're speaking as individuals?
That's what I'm talking about, a broad front of different organizations, different police forums and so on that gets heard in the Western Cape more than from individual people.
So you heard then the reflections of the minister there. Communities coming together in a more unified way, speaking in one voice against crime. He says that that is what will assist them in the fight against crime. How can we make that a reality? Is it a fair ask on communities, or is it simply putting too much pressure on people where they are already doing what they can? I'll take some of your calls on 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, let me kick it off in Soshanguve this morning. Kailo, good morning to you.
How are you, man?
I'm going to say, Kailo, I'm not surprised. I was expecting to see the subject on the open line this morning. Yes, what do you want to talk about?
I wanted to comment on the matter of Panyaza Lesufi wanting to introduce Mandarin and Swahili into the school curriculum.
What about it?
So many people are saying that, are complaining, are rebuffing that by saying that we should focus on our identities first in terms of our indigenous languages. But my opinion is that no, the matter of identity and language is the responsibility of the parents of the learners, not the school. The school is there to offer options of languages and subjects that you want to learn that can take you places. But the parent is ultimately responsible for the identity, because the school is not a magic place that does everything.
So, Kailo, where does that then leave this plan that the Premier has spoken about?
So ironically, at the same time, I do believe, this plan, it will open doors for people. Like, if you learn Mandarin, you can go to China and teach English there. I forgot the name of that program where you do
You've got a number of exchange programs between South Africa and China. Some go and become English teachers. There are a few industries where that exchange sort of takes place.
Yes, that's what I wanted to point out, the benefit, that as a benefit. However, ironically, at the same time, I do believe it will take a lot of money to roll out, so it might chow into the national budget negatively and affect other things that were budgeted for.
Yeah, okay. All right, Kailo and Soshanguve, let's leave it there. Parents, you have the responsibility of teaching your children the languages that you want them to learn, but give your kids the opportunity perhaps to become more global citizens is part of the argument Kailo is making. Charlie in Koffiefontein, you also want to stay with the same issue?
Yes, Cathy. I'm saying Panyaza Lesufi has all these big ideas and, everything should be so wonderful, but it doesn't get the basics first right. You introduced a system where parents should now apply online for a school. A lot of parents struggled to get placement for the school. Others were placed very far from where they are staying. It's now coming to Mandarin and Swahili. Who speaks Mandarin and Swahili in South Africa? Now, there's no South African Swahili or Mandarin. This, according to me, is one of the...
Charlie, when you say that there are no South Africans that speak Mandarin or Swahili, that's not true.
Cathy, I'm going to tell you a controversial thing. We've got, I think, 9 native languages here in South Africa, or 9 natives, ethnic natives who speak their home languages. Then we've got 2 languages which are of European descent. There is not one native which speaks Mandarin or Swahili. There is no South African who speaks Mandarin or Swahili. Do not confuse having South African citizenship with being South African. Look, if my child is born in China, he's not Chinese, he just got a Chinese citizen.
Charlie, there are many South Africans, right, that have gone to do study programs in China. In fact, I have a couple of friends that have gone to do that. Some are fluent in Mandarin, they are South African. And you get to see the benefit of knowing the language when it comes to those that are busy, that are in the business field, having to build relations, having to enter into contracts, etc., etc. It's always better when you have somebody who understands the language but is also able to speak your own language. So they then will consult for different businesses who are wanting to explore opportunities with Chinese partners or those that speak Mandarin.
Our medium of language in South Africa for business is English. All over, it's English, except for
yes, but it doesn't mean that
Afrikaner.
it doesn't mean that South Africans will do business with only English-speaking people.
Yeah, but now who says that our children are going to do business with Chinese? Because now you're taking, like Malantika, I'm telling you, you're taking away the basic things that we send our children to. You as a premier should get the basics first, right, before you can introduce all these nice things that you think our children need it. Our children don't need to be taught in Swahili and Mandarin. Our children need to have proper schools where there's good sanitation. We should have qualifications where at least the grade 3s can learn for comprehension. Not these things that when you want to put in Mandarin. Why doesn't it focus in coding or artificial intelligence? Things which are going to uplift the children.
Okay.
Why don't they introduce straight subjects like artisan subjects in high school, so that when students are finished with their high school, then they at least know how to do plumbing, how to do electricity, how to become electricians, instead of focusing on things which doesn't make sense.
Charlie, on that one, I think we can both agree that yes, it's great to have the additionals, but the basics have to be intact.
Yes.
The basics must be in place.
Yes, before we can chat about Mandarin and these other things.
Okay, all right. Charlie out in Koffiefontein.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you heard what Charlie had to say. Njabulo, you're in Durban. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Just to comment on the situation in Cape Town and what the Minister of Police had to say.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, he is right about communities having to play a bigger role. But in this instance, I think the Cape Town communities have come together and are right in the fact that they are not protected by their local police. The police are involved in a lot of the things that go on there. Therefore, why doesn't the minister have a national task force of police that are brought in from outside of the province? You can gather them up from KZN, you can gather them up from Limpopo and all the way around the country and bring them into the province to sort that problem of gangsterism and drugs out. That way you eliminate this corruption of local police and provincial. It even extends as far as provincial. So they're not safe in that aspect, absolutely. But also cycle police around. You can't have them staying in the same stations and same districts for their whole careers, because that allows breeding ground for this corruption and gang relation and to be exploited in these circumstances.
So, Njabulo, if we were to think of communities coming together and being more unified in opposing crime, what would that practically look like, right? Because you will have within any communities different groupings that, are fighting for people's rights and trying to make sure that there is better protection, etc., etc. So in the absence of any resources going to these individuals to help them in their efforts to fight crime, what would that look like?
It's difficult to state, but I think it stems from not allowing the criminal elements to creep in from the very levels we've allowed it to develop. We know who the gangsters are when they start off in our communities, or the criminals, or those who do petty theft and everything, and it graduates. It's like that Giuliani said in New York, it was the broken window effect, and that's the results of this. So we need to stamp it out right from the at big level, it's very difficult to say what it needs to look like. But I think the support needs to come from national government. There needs to be better protection of these individuals who stand up. But shaking up the police regularly, making sure that there's 6-month rotations of individuals at police stations and they're not stationed there the whole time, as they say, that the police are going back and telling individuals that, hey, so on and so on came to report something against you. Making sure that that doesn't happen, because there's different faces there, people who have no allegiances to gangs or the community there and are there to absolutely execute a job.
Absolutely.
So,
all right.
It's difficult to say what it needs to look like, because it's a very complex problem, definitely.
All right, Njabulo, thanks for calling in and sharing your insights there. And I guess it is difficult that even when you're acting as a group, there will be individuals that ultimately are seen as the face or the faces of a particular initiative or a particular agenda. And so once you are now identified as the face, that means that you are the threat. So you become the target for some of these criminal elements. All right, I'm going to continue taking your calls on 086 000 2032. It's the open line. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. It's 9:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the bodies of 2 women have washed up on 2 separate beaches in the south of Durban. At the moment, it's not clear whether their deaths are linked to heavy rains and flooding since last night. Western Cape Premier Alan Winde will deliver his State of the Province address at Beaufort West in the Karoo this evening. Winde says he will report back to residents on the progress the provincial government has made in implementing its priorities over the past year and to further outline their priorities for 2025. And negotiators in Cairo mediating in the ceasefire talks on Gaza say an agreement has been reached for the release of all the Palestinian prisoners. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Throughout the country, working with municipalities, potholes will be closed. I'm going to take the money that we have been allocating and use it to close these potholes.
We will always join the pothole patching projects so that we can inform South Africans that indeed Operation Valazonke is happening.
Gauteng problem number 4, potholes. We are now establishing a 72-hour pothole repair line which will work with local government to ensure that all potholes that have been reported through this particular line can be repaired within 72 hours.
And I gotta believe. My daddy taught me to believe, my mama taught me to believe, and I believe it in the just believe, 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 oh my friend.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the open line. Let me go to the Northwest. Philip, good morning.
Morning, Oskate. How are you?
Good, Philip. Go for it.
Oskate, I have developed an idea of an aircraft that I believe can assist in reducing air crashes that occur due to human error.
Okay.
And my model is made of 2 aircraft put together, each with independent operation from one another. In other words, the lower part can be used for normal operation and the upper part in an emergency. And according to my research, this model has never been given thought before in the history of aviation. And my project is currently acknowledged by Utah State University, and they are willing to commission a senior design project with aerospace faculty in order to develop this model. And the only challenge that I have is funding. My sister, so can you please help me?
And Philip, tell me a little bit about your background.
Okay, I have been conducting this research from 2009 to date. And according to, when I started my research, I followed different types of...
Hello, Philip? Oh, where's Philip? Oh, we've lost Philip. Philip, please call back. I want to hear more about your story. I'd really like to continue engaging you. Thomas, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Cathy, good morning. Just two comments on the issue of the minister regarding the community involvement in crime fighting.
Mm-hmm.
What we have noted in the Western Cape, for example, is a situation where a criminal is well known in the community. And when the police come and try and exercise their duty to arrest that criminal, you see the community up in arms, protesting and going on. Then that for me is not right. It defeats the whole idea of trying to fight crime. Now, if we are reporting crime and then we are the same people who chases away the police when they come into our community, I'm not saying the police, their hands are clean, but I think really that's what the minister was trying to say, that communities need to speak with one voice, okay, not act when it suits them, they act with the police, and when it doesn't suit them, they act against the police. That's not right.
So Thomas, you're saying that there's a lack of consistency in some
100%.
Instances from
100%.
members of the community around.
100%.
And tell me, does that depend on which criminal is involved? So
I think largely to a large extent it involves, if for example it's my family members, and then I want to, I can't call a spade a spade. I can't say my family member is a criminal. It's only when it's somebody else that I don't know, and then I can point a finger. So when the police come for my family member, someone is just like they are committing a crime, and that is not. We know it happens every day. Even recently, on TV, there was a video in one of those, I think Bishop Lavis in Cape Town, where the community were up in arms, trying to chase the police away from arresting a suspect.
All right, Thomas, I hear you loud and clear. Thanks for calling. Yeah. All right, Thomas is gone. But yeah, I hear the point that you're making there, that there needs to be greater consistency from members of the community. Vincent, you're in the Western Cape. Good morning. Hello, Vincent. All right, it looks like we've lost Vincent there. Anonymous, you're also in Cape Town. Good morning.
This is Cathy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call, man. I'm a resident here in the Western Cape, and I'm an entrepreneur that deals with the township, because I service around about 6 communities in Cape Town. And it's said that the minister can use the Cape Town as an example of a united community when we are so hopelessly hopeless in finding assistance or from the police, because we have to stand for ourselves. He speaks about the community that has to assist the police, but the same community, it's threatened when they get arrested. I grew up in the township. What I'm trying to say is when in the past we used to have a united community where thieves, Iskoli, would be taken care of by the community and taken to police, being released and stuff like that. And it's tiring that you do the same thing, but you get the same results. You get the hopeless police releasing these people. So hence, I see the community as has abandoned assisting police because there are no innovations, in innovation ways, new innovations in tackling crime in the township of what you call like Mfuleni, like Kailita. It's an old way that you tell people must have donkey pills to police, and you give them these reflective jackets. If they get shot there, nobody will will know what happened to the people that were wearing they call it neighborhood watch. If they get shot, those people there's nothing that will happen with Cathy. Those people will be deported to the Eastern Cape to be buried, and life continues. So how do you request the community to assist the police if there are no innovation ideas that we understand? I don't know.
And Anonymous, to the point that one of our listeners raised, I think he was calling from Durban, to say that communities need to not allow even the activity of gangs to get to a point where these gangs are able to fully operate and run their illegal operations. That at the point of identification, at the point that, people see that there is something amiss, that these individuals who seem to be up to no good, that they should speak up from that point.
I think I'm hearing what you're saying, but there's no support. I'm trying to say that there's no support from the police. And Minister Mkhulu would not take advice from the people from the ground. Myself also have written to the to the JP Smith, because I'm also staying in the township, just to find solutions, because I've got solutions for my community. But those people won't take our proposal serious because we don't have the English that they speak. Rather than when you propose something to them, they tell you something different. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Because now we should have as a community, in township, we should be able to have our own CCTVs so that we can be able, when there's a problem, we go there and say, this was the problem, this is where it started. Unlike using the word of mouth. Because word of mouth changes, you understand, there's no info. But if there were CCTVs that were introduced and they were being monitored, I believe, the crime would reduce. Because now you tell the police, they sell you out, you understand? And you die, and if you die, you'll see in the township, they die, life continues. Let people's lives don't matter, man. If they will die like flies.
And Anonymous, what have you found to be the challenge in getting broader support, let's say from members of your community? Because you have a business in the in the township, you live in the township. The issues that you're facing are not exclusive to you.
What I found to be the problem, Cathy, is that I tried. I'm an entrepreneur. I did a letter of intent where I showed the community. I think where in my blog, it's around about 150 households. Then I pitched the idea to them that we want to make sure that the kids are safe. We want to make sure that every car, because now the cars are coming in, they do the breakings in the area and stuff like that. So I pitched that we want to make sure that we protect those. How do we do that? In the entry point, in white residence, you find that there's one entrance, there's one exit. The entrance that you use to enter the suburb, you're going to use that exit to go out again. So in the township, you come from this left and you can live out anywhere. These passages. So we introduce, we propose that we have one exit, one enter in the township, and we have we have the cameras. We can we can donate, we can request for donations. There are lots of people that are educated like Cathy and your team there. We propose to you that, you guys, how can we get at least 10 rand donations so that we can have two people that will be able to control the traffic going in and control the traffic going out, so that we know who comes in, we know who goes out. In the township, there's nothing like that.
Okay.
We don't know who comes in. Everybody comes in as they wish.
Anonymous.
That was the idea.
All right, let's leave it there. Anonymous out in Cape Town. That very much sounds like the model of gated communities that have sprung up all over Johannesburg, right? And it's not just in the suburbs. I've been to the east of the city, where you would have gated communities that residents have put up for themselves in the township. And yes, sometimes it is met with opposition and resistance, but ultimately when communities feel that it does help with fighting crime and with managing, as Anonymous is saying, the influx of people in and out of certain areas, then that is exactly what they do. Of course, it is legislated, but I don't know to what extent all of the rules are followed by those that decide to put up the gates, and you know how it goes. Put up the gate, then they would close off some of the streets that link into a particular area, and we have seen court interdicts against actions like that. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm back with more of your calls.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, primeless 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Cathy, hope all is well. Cathy is Mohlahlana in Cape Town. I must say, as a South African, I am very embarrassed at the ignorance of our people. Yeah, man, I mean, look, having Mandarin and Swahili as some of the most spoken languages world over can only be good for us as South Africans and for our children. So the ignorance is really running town, and it's actually sad. And it's also showing that as South Africans, we are not so well traveled, and we are very limited in our world view. And this is why sometimes we take this tribal route and nationalism. Anyway, Cathy, good show. Thank you.
Morning, Cathy. Cathy, how long are we going to be depending on countries like America, China? Why must we always conform to these countries? South Africa is so rich, we can do our own economy here. All Panyaza, they must focus on training people on skills that they can make them to be productive for their own country. Now we are going to be sucking to these countries like America and China for how long? Because down the years, down the line, you'll be fighting with the same Chinese. Instead of doing your own economy here, just learn from other countries, man. There's no need. That's why even Trump is doing this nonsense to us, because we want to depend on these countries. We can't be doing that. How long must we do this thing? It's Mzin Blomfontein. Thanks, Keith.
All right, thank you for those WhatsApp voice notes. Let me go to David in Kofimbaba. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Cathy. I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, welcome to the show, David.
Now I've been listening to your show. I listened to your interview with the minister. The problem here in Kofimbaba you find people selling dacha in the street, in suitcases, like hawkers. When you go to the police, you tell them, they do nothing. And you also see them selling dacha muffins to school kids. And that's part of crime. We even went to the police station commander to say, as ratepayers, at least this is bad. And we even told the municipality, how do you give people license that you don't even know what they are hawkering? Because selling of dacha in suitcases is bad. I even went myself to those guys. They said, we know you are not happy with what you are doing. We are going nowhere. Nobody can touch us. It means crime will never fight crime in this country. Everything is just loose. We even suggested to the state command, because these policemen, they know these people, they will load them in their kumbis as if they are resting, take around and drop them. So it's so bad. It was better when there was this rotation, 6 months, and then policemen are transferred to other police stations, and because there's no trust even within the police themselves. Some are leaving the police station because if they arrest, they are seen as people who are very, who close the chances. Maybe we even said to the station command, we suspect some of your policemen are in the payroll.
Yeah, but
he said then.
You know, David, to have people specifically targeting school children, selling them space muffins, that is, and they're allowed to do that. So everybody knows the corner that they can go to, where they can buy it at any given point.
And you find that in the school, the kids, there's hallucination.
But of
and
course,
they will call pastors
it
to
causes
say
chaos.
there's bad witchcraft and all that, only to find it's because of those muffins. I even took those muffins from the kids. They were about 13-year-old. I said, what is this? They said, no, I'm going to buying these things from our friends. And I took the muffins. When I broke the muffins into half, it was full of dacha. They were in uniform. We even said to the municipalities, why don't you gazette your bylaws and also check what are those people selling in the street? Because it's sold. Nobody's hiding. You see flag, you see suitcase, it's being packed in the street. It's no longer that thing of being hide. They hide it. So, when minister was talking, I said, they will never fight crime. Because the policemen, most of them are part of this.
David Ngofimvaba, thanks for calling in. Yeah, that is absolutely chilling, right? Think about young people who have a space cookie before they go to school. How are they going to learn? What productive energy are you going to be able to get out of them? And one would think that it also would need perhaps even the involvement of the school too, to take it up. Maybe this is also part of why there's a call for communities, because something like this is also something that needs the community to get involved. Sillo, you're in Ventersdorp. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. How are you?
Good, Sillo. Go for it.
Good. I mean Ventersdorp, not Ventersdorp. Sis Cathy, I'm worried, very much worried. I'm going to hit two birds with one stone. Actually, during the thing of safety and security in our South Africa. Tuesday, actually it was on Monday, I was listening to Lesedi FM, this current affair show, when they were speaking to one guy and expect in terms of regarding the state of readiness of the South African Defense Force in terms of what is this? The army and the Air Force. This case, it's shocking when that guy was saying that on the Air Force there is plus 300 and something aircraft that are in South African Air Force, but only 15% of the entire fleet is only working. The entire thing is not working. The 85% it is not working. So my question is that if we have only 15% of the fleet of the entire aircraft in the Air Force only working, how are we going to defend our country? So it goes down to what the general was saying in the funeral in the Free State here of one of the soldiers, that because what he said, it is the one that has sparked the case and opened eyes for many people. I'm worried, Casey, if the subcommittee of the defense in the parliamentary, Dakota Lokwete and Melusi Kigaba, are sitting there only not finding a way forward of how this thing of defunding the army is going to be resolved. This case, we are in a very serious problem. Very, very serious. If the government now can start thinking about a serious funding in the budget to assist our military SNDF, at least we'll be protected. We know we can sleep peacefully. So
okay.
I was so shocked. Secondly, with this one, this case of the Minister of Police, I'm a member of CPS. I just want to be honest with you. We are still dealing with the factor of underfunding of police. Here in Vandersburg, we have a police station with no police, if I can say that. How can a police station, which it was established with 30-something police in blue, men in blue, and now we are sitting only with plus or 20-something. So it means people are being like dying or whatever, then they're not being replaced. And in terms of CPF, if the police can be, if the minister can also find a way somewhere, somehow, to assist us as CPF, community in blues, neighbor patrols and all those with equipment, how can we patrol the place of only with barefoot? Like the other gentleman spoke about that. If one gets shot, then that is a problem that a minister will be not dealing with, like delinquently. So it will be another life going on.
Okay.
So this funding, as is Casey, is the problem in our safety and security in South Africa.
It's a lot. Let's leave it there. Vuyiswa, you're in Parktown North. Good morning.
Cathy, how are you? Thanks for taking my call.
Hello, Vuyiswa. All right, not sure what has happened there. We've lost
Hello,
on
Cathy?
the line.
Hello?
Yes, hi, Vuyiswa, you're back.
Yeah, thank you. What I'm saying, my support goes, to the general, and I really resonate with him because the truth is a tendency of revealing itself. It's hard because the protocols don't work, management meetings don't work, your postparent doesn't work. That's something that I've encountered. And then you find that there are those who are worshipping the principals. There's an animosity between the principal and the accounting officer. I think it was high time that he reveals the truth, because you are someone who is on a management position, that you have junior staff that are looking up to you for deliverables, but then you don't have someone to talk to and agree with on certain things that are not going right in the department or ministry. So for me, I think it is such a crucial issue to be attended to, that our ministers and accounting officers learn to respect management, those who are in management positions, because they are the ones who are faced with challenges.
Okay.
I remember I went through that and they ended up hiring someone. I worked with a principal that did not talk to me for 14 months. And the whole almost department was now against me because the principal wasn't really happy with me because I spoke truth to power. So a man came in, I was tortured every day for nothing, just for speaking truth. So I think we need to support the general, whatever the case.
Okay. All right, Vuiswa. Yeah. Heard you loud and clear. Vuiswa in Parktown, North Kwena in Limpopo. Good morning.
Hi, Sis Cathy. I'm very much worried about the minister's comment with regard to people should group themselves and present the criminals or report criminals. That's very concerning. I think that has not worked for years. It has been like that. People have been reporting either on individual basis or in groups, but the poor people have been killed to a point where now they know that you say something, the person will be confronted by the police today or tomorrow, and the person will be back about the third or fourth day, and then you are killed, and nothing happens. Whether in group or in single, what will be the difference? The difference has not been proved since, I'm sure it's a number of years. That's why the community came to a point where they realized that you say something, you will be killed. And I've got this to say to the police minister. He, I think, is not being honest. Does he really take into account that the very same system of reporting, whether by a group or single, by individuals, it leads to the police officers, the honest police officers who are out there to do their job, being killed and being pointed by their own colleagues to criminals. So it does not really work. I'm glad that you played the promises that are made by the ANC ministers in their different names and numbers, where you played them back to back, where they are saying potholes will do this. The other one will say, the second one, potholes will do this. Now Panyazalu, potholes will do this. But then you played a very nice closing. Believe, 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 just believe. And that's what the ANC is all about.
Okay.
Believe us even if we lie to you.
Gwena, on that note, let's go to the latest news update.
In our top stories, 5 bodies recovered in the south of Durban and a deal reached to release Palestinian prisoners. Good morning. 5 bodies have been recovered by search and rescue teams in the south of Durban. 3 bodies, including 2 children, were found at Cuttings Beach, while the other 2 were recovered at Anstey's and Brighton Beach. It's unclear at this stage whether these are the bodies of the 6 people who were washed away from Lamontville last night. KwaZulu-Natal Cooperative Governance MEC Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi has urged people living in low-lying areas to seek shelter on higher ground. He says the South African Weather Service has issued a level 2 warning for further rain throughout the day. This after heavy rains last night caused key roads and residential areas in the south of Durban and on the province's south coast to flood. Sandparks at Table Mountain is warning hikers to stay away from the closed trails as crews battle a vegetation fire that broke out on Sunday. Sandparks is deploying aerial resources to the Cape Town City Bowl and Red Hill due to escalating fires as a result of strong winds overnight. Spokesperson Charles Patlane says they are concerned about the continued presence of hikers on trails that have been fire damaged or closed.
As a precaution, the following areas remain closed until further notice. This is the front table trails from Platteklip Gorge to Newlands, including McClare's Beacon. Tafelberg Road is closed to the public. At Kirstenbosch and Rose Memorial, we have active fire lines that remain closed to Kirstenbosch. Newlands Forest remains closed. In Red Hill, access from Red Hill, Slankop, Ocean View, Yonkers Dam and Klein Plus Dam is restricted.
The Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Buti Manamela, says sexual violence and GBV are some of the challenges facing the higher education sector. Manamela was reacting after 8 students were robbed and 4 raped at Larihani TVET College in Limpopo. Manamela says the affected students must be assisted and protected.
Have got protocols in place in instances such as this, so they know what to do to protect the victims, to also ensure that, if the perpetrator is within the campuses, that is dealt with. So, but I cannot comment any further. I will ensure that we put our agency, if they're not already on the case, higher half on that case, so that they deal with it. And rapies and gender-based violence is one of the challenges we face.
Western Cape Premier Alan Winde will deliver his State of the Province address at Beaufort West in the Karoo this evening. Winde says he will report back to residents on the progress the provincial government has made in implementing its priorities over the past year and to further outline their priorities for 2025. He says hosting the event in Beaufort West is in line with their commitment to bring government closer to the residents of the province.
We like to take the State of the Province address out to the people, and of course we will be focusing primarily on how do we get more and more economic growth, more and more jobs. We might have the lowest unemployment rate in South Africa, but we've got to push even more because nothing changes your life like a job. And of course the infrastructure, investment, this ecosystem that enables that economy and those businesses to create more jobs, and of course those citizens to be able to get those jobs.
And finally, negotiators in Cairo mediating in the ceasefire talks on Gaza say an agreement has been reached for the release of all the Palestinian prisoners Israel refused to free last weekend. They say this will come in exchange for the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages held by Hamas. The BBC's Kat Werner has the details.
In a statement, Hamas confirmed that what it called a simultaneous release would end the impasse that risked collapsing the ceasefire before the first stage had been completed. On Saturday, the Israeli government said it was halting indefinitely the release of over 600 Palestinians because of what it said was Hamas's cynical use of hostages for propaganda purposes. Hamas accused Israel of deliberately disrupting the ceasefire deal. The International Committee of the Red Cross has urged all parties to carry out the exchange of hostages and prisoners in a dignified and private manner. Israeli officials have said Wednesday's swap will be overseen by Egypt.
Recapping the top story, 5 bodies have been recovered by search and rescue teams in the south of Durban. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show, 8 after 10 o'clock. For Citizens Corner today, we're looking at young female farmers who'll be sharing their stories with us and also how they've been able to not only grow their businesses, but to give support to their communities through agriculture and doing that through farming. So I'm looking forward to hearing their stories within the next hour, and it does come back to how we can be contributing as citizens, and where there is an opportunity, how do we also ensure that we are imparting skills with our communities that can help improve their lives? So before we get into that, your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Cathy, this is Stanley from Guguleto. When the minister talks about community programs and community, unity, I think he's counting on homogeneity of community, agendas and goals. And he's not factoring in the dynamics within the communities that could be pulling to different sides. I think they're also deflecting because the police should be playing their role, and communities, yes, I know they can be playing a big role, but they cannot be heading the entire cause of fighting crime. There's a lot of people within the communities that are benefiting from the crimes without necessarily being in the crimes, such as maybe parents who might be benefiting financially.
We believe, we believe, we believe, yes, we believe, yes, we believe.
Hello, Cathy. Cathy, you're speaking to Pand in Cape Town. My understanding of the minister yesterday, Cathy, was that the community must identify and isolate the criminals. In a certain village called Sextrom, Cathy, they attacked my car. Instead of the community identifying the criminals, they hide the criminal because I was not coming from there. I agree with the minister fully. As long as the community are not in block and are not against crime, they're hiding criminals. It is not the problem of the police, but that of the community. Thank you, Cathy.
Morning, Cathy. I'm wanting to comment on the Dacha cookies. So regarding the principals getting involved, the school cannot get involved in anything that happens outside the school grounds unless it was an event that they took the children to. But other than that, I was told by a principal here in the Western Cape when I mentioned to him on the way to school, these children are doing slow boats. And he said there's nothing he can do. So they just come there sitting high. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. I hope that you're okay. It's Nola in Queenstown. So I've been listening to one of the callers, David from Ekofemvab. What David is saying about people selling dach on the street to school children, it's something possible with Ekofemvab and other Eastern Cape towns. For example, I want to show you something. There were well-known criminals who were shot by the police recently in Butterworth. They went to Ekofemvab police station to try and speak with the station commander. What happened is, the police, knowing that these people are well known, they didn't even try to apprehend them, meaning that they are incompetent. So police from other unit had to intervene and try to arrest those people. It tells you that there's lawlessness in that town. I'm currently I'm driving on it. There's no police van, there's nothing.
Hi, Cathy. This is BB from Durban. Just listening to the police minister. I think our biggest problem in South Africa is that we're not providing adequate protection for whistleblowers. I think if you can guarantee safety to whistleblowers, people will come out and, rat out the perpetrators of crime in their area, knowing that their safety can be guaranteed. I think that's something that we need to actively look at and find some kind of solution to. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for those WhatsApp voice notes. Certainly giving your different takes on the issues. And I hear what you're saying about the challenges that people often face when they have to raise concerns, when they have to go and alert police of what is happening. I think the point around whistleblowers is extremely important, because as long as we don't show that we protect whistleblowers, we create the kind of situation that we find ourselves in today. All right, we'll take a quick break. I'm back with our Citizens Corner after this.
S3 and Lorna Maseko are adding flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. From reimagining traditional South African dishes to infusing global inspirations, Lorna's inventive recipes and seasoned cooking tips inspire creativity and will empower viewers to navigate the kitchen with savvy resourcefulness. Tune into Lorna's Pantry, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
We are not protected. Our borders are porous. And they're porous because you, the politicians, have decided you want a Mickey Mouse Defense Force.
Right. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, I'm afraid that everything that the Surgeon General said there is factual. You know, there's no argument there. It needed to be said. And people don't always like what they hear, but the ones who don't like it are the ones who made it the way it is. And that's the politicians.
Vicky Greeff, who is the South African National Defence Union's National Secretary.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Well, let's get then into our conversation for this morning. We're talking about how female and youth rural farmers are empowering their communities through agriculture. Let me welcome onto the show Cathy Mohlahlana, who is a farmer, mentor, author, and also the owner of Valamisi Agricultural Project based in Makolokwe village in Brits. Cathy, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to your listeners.
Takatso Murata is a livestock farmer and also owner of Maruping Agricultural Project. Takatso is based in Jane Fairs. Takatso, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you so much for being part of the conversation. And Leila Litlogonolo is a grain and vegetable farmer based out in Brits in the Northwest as well. Leila, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, too, for making time for us. So, you know, we talk about how big an issue of hunger we have in our country. And when we think about farming, if everybody had a vegetable garden or a fruit and vegetable garden in their backyards, it of course would go a long way in alleviating some of the hunger challenges that we face. And yet when we look at careers in agriculture, they're often not seen as, you know, sexy careers. They're not the ones that are most spoken about. So, Cathy, let's maybe begin with you so that you can tell us about how you ended up in farming in the first place.
Morning. I think we didn't get the greetings in there. I was born in an agricultural family. My dad started farming in 2001. My mom was also she had a fruit and vegetable market. So I grew up in the space. When I graduated, I've got an engineering degree. After graduating, I also knew that I want the freedom that comes with agriculture. So growing up, having my parents available because they were farmers, was attracted to. So that's what made agriculture attractive, because I just wanted freedom. I just wanted to be able to play around with nature, be outdoors. So I chose agriculture for those reasons.
Yeah, Chalizi, we're going to try and get you back up on a different line. I'm struggling to hear and make out part of what you're saying. Takhatso, let me come to you and give you the opportunity to speak to us about how you ended up in farming.
Thank you for this opportunity. Can I use my home language, or maybe it's not possible to use Sepedi since some are not Pedi?
As far as possible, Takhatso.
Huh?
I'm saying that please try and use English as much as you can, but where you feel you need to, you can also use Sepedi.
Okay, thank you. My journey being a farmer, I've studied management assistant, so I did some research. So the opportunity of getting employed, it was very hard. It was very difficult for me. So that's why I ended up being a farmer. Being a farmer, like I've noticed that many young people in Limpopo, especially in my municipality, are not working, and the opportunity of getting jobs, it's very low. So that's why I ended up being a farmer. I started planting. Then after that, I've applied many support organized programs. Then I got the program of Paysi voucher. So that's where I started doing poultry. I bought chickens, then raised them and sell them. That's where I started this farming journey.
Geez, Takhatso, and how long were you unemployed for?
It's been 5 years now.
And when did you start your farming journey?
2021.
Okay, so you've equally then been on the journey for 5 years as well. What was it like when you first started?
Pardon?
When you first started farming, what was the journey like for you? What were some of the experiences that you had?
So it was very difficult because I just do farming because I love it. I don't have any qualification of farming, so I just doing it for passion. So I develop experience through the way. It was very challenging because of studying farming. It needs maybe more experience since you started for livestock. It's very challenging because some you'll go lost, you'll run lost because chicken can just die without even knowing what's going on or what's the disease that caused that mortality. It was very challenging.
I can imagine. Leila, let me come to you then and get a little bit of your history and how you ended up in farming.
Thank you, Cathy. I'm originally from Attridgeville. The reason why I got into farming was because of my mother. So we are both in the farming industry, and that's when my journey began. So I started working with her in 2018, and then I diverted and I went into the beauty industry, and then I realized, you know what, let me go back.
When you say you had been working with your mother, what kind of produce was she farming?
We mostly deal with grains. So we've been doing grains, and we are currently also doing vegetables, planting vegetables.
From beauty to agriculture, quite a diversion there, Leila. Talk to me about that change, the transition, because again, agriculture is not one of those subjects that, or rather one of those careers that is sort of put out there, especially for women to pursue.
True, true. The transition was very difficult because you can imagine working in beauty salons and also working for certain beauty industries. So I had to choose actually family business and actually adjust to it so I can learn better, so I can carry on with the legacy.
Chilidzi, are you back on the line with us? All right, it looks like the connection to Chilidzi is quite bad, but we'll let you know as soon as she's been able to get back up on the line. So, Tahajo, then, let me come to you and ask you about the work that you are doing and the involvement and the role that what you're doing plays in the community overall.
It helps. It helps my community because I have managed to hire 4 people that will put food on their table. So it really helps because some they just come and I train them to how to manage this poultry farm for free. But I've managed to hire 4 people. So it makes it different.
Do you find that there is a hunger for the skill in the community, that people want to learn how to do what you are doing?
Definitely. They are willing to learn. They are willing to learn because every time I have new visitors that will question or maybe willing to learn or willing to participate for a day just to learn how to operate this poultry farm, because of here in Makodi Tamaga, the unemployment is very high. So they are willing to open their businesses so that they can have something. They have something to eat.
Leila, when you speak to people in the industry, farming can not only be very hard, but it looks like it can also be a very lonely journey, and where farmers sometimes feel that they're not being adequately supported. How have you and your mother navigated that space?
Cathy, we have navigated that space by actually having a small group on WhatsApp, which is other farmers around our region. And we mostly talk about the challenges that we face, because it can literally be depressing at times where you find that you have planted a certain product, but it doesn't get to the point where you can be able to harvest it, and that's when you make a loss. So it really is a very lonely, non-supportive journey.
And who do you look to in terms of support or mentorship?
We usually go to workshops. There are workshops that happen through AVGRI and through ARC and through SA Gap.
All right. Chilidzi, you're back on the line, and I wanted to ask you, because you're also very focused on making sure that you help to transfer the skill of farming to your community and also to schools in your area. Firstly, speak to me about the level of interest that there is from the community more broadly to learn these skills.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me now. The level of interest is, I treat it like people don't know. So that's how I've been approaching it. So initially when we started in 2019, people were not interested. So we actively, by starting one garden, drew in the interest. And we were intentional when we went for the young children. So we started our project with the primary schools, knowing that kids are curious, they're still teachable. So when the garden is successful through kids, they're able to take it home, and the parents are able to now experience the whole process with their children, and now the parents are interested. So we're having more and more parents become interested in the whole process, and some are actively now participating. So one person, one garden, that's how we're handling it.
All right, we're going to continue the conversation with our young female farmers when we continue the show on The Talking Point. Of course, I'd also love to hear from you in terms of the role that farming plays in your community. But as an industry, is it something that you are wanting to venture into? Maybe you are already in the space. What are the challenges that you're facing? And if there's anything that can be offered up as advice to these young female farmers as well, based on the challenges that they have highlighted in this conversation. I'll take your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
News headlines at 10:30 on SAFM. I am Ondela Mbana and a very good morning. Heavy rains at Port Shepstone on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast have damaged roads, infrastructure and businesses. This has led to extensive damage to some homes, businesses and infrastructure in the eThekwini Metro and parts of the KwaZulu-Natal south coast. President Cyril Ramaphosa says debt sustainability for developing economies is one of the priorities that South Africa will focus underway in Cape Town, and unions representing workers at the South African Post Office have expressed their frustration and disappointment with government's handling of the business rescue process at the entity. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 41 to the dollar, 23 rand 29 to the pound, and 19 rand 33 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mainly higher at the closing bell. The JSE is mostly positive during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are slightly firmer. Gold is trading at $2,915. Platinum, $970 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $73.30 a barrel.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. For Citizens Corner today, we're profiling young female farmers and looking at the work that they're doing, but also how they've been able to assist their communities through the opportunities that they're creating. Chilizi Mavula is a farmer, author, and the owner of Valamisi Agricultural Project in Makolukwe. Makolokwe village in Brits. Takhatso Marota is a livestock farmer and holder of Maruping Agricultural Project. She's based in Jane First. And Leila Lithoronolo Nkwana is a grain and vegetable farmer also out in Brits in the northwest. So joining this conversation is Sipe Chawana, who is from the Eastern Cape, Lady Freya. Sipe, good morning to you. Thank you for being part of this conversation too.
Good morning, Cathy. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Let's talk about your journey into farming, Sipe. How did you find yourself where you are today?
So my journey, I actually studied agriculture at university. I've got a degree in crop production, and my partner, Cathy Mohlahlana, who was supposed to join you, also has a master's in agronomy. So we were working under one of the department's programs under assistant agricultural practitioners, but then the contract abruptly ended in 2023, and we couldn't find work, so we decided, you know what, let's take the knowledge we have and put it to good use. And we started our own little farm. We currently are farming vegetables, a hectare of cabbage, we've got a hectare of potatoes, and we've also started livestock. We've got 2 Brahman heifers, and we have 10 Savannah goats. So that's currently our operation.
Okay, and you studied agriculture as well, right?
Yes.
So,
yes, at the university.
So this is something that you've always wanted to do?
Yes.
Why?
I think I fell in love with agriculture because of my mother. She works for the Department of Agriculture, so I grew up exposed to it. And also in the Eastern Cape, in the rural areas, it's really the way of life, right? So we'd go home for the holidays, and in June you'd find your granny and you'd help her with harvesting of the maize and growing the garden. So it kind of became a passion because of her.
I want to find out from you, what makes a career in agriculture rewarding or fulfilling?
Okay, well, the role of agriculture, right, is to supply food to the population. So we all know that South Africa, on top of its many problems, has an unemployment program, an unemployment problem, and we also have a problem with just quality of life. So the role of agriculture is just to introduce food to the people. So the most fulfilling thing about agriculture is being able to help people feed their families without breaking their pockets. So in an ideal situation, I would love for every family to have their own little garden so that they supply themselves with their own natural vegetables that are organic and healthy for them, so that, you know, we try and mitigate the problems that we face, because there's really no money in the world currently.
Chilidze, ultimately what you are running is a small to medium enterprise, right? And we know of some of the challenges that small-scale farmers in this country face. Maybe based on your own experiences, how would you say you've been able to overcome those challenges?
I think I've been able to overcome the challenges through, I was talking to a friend about this thing, building a network, having a mentor. All these resources help you to get information, and ultimately having information empowers you. So mentorship, building a strong network through going to events, meeting other farmers, going to these workshops, also places where you can now get support and information.
In what ways does that help you, Chilidze?
Now my life changed when I started having a mentor. So I go to my mentor with my problems. This is what I'm facing. She's been there. She's got the path paved for her. So she's able to quickly say, go there, go there, go there. You'll be able to get these resources that are going to help you get over this challenge. So a mentor is like a shortcut that's how I've treated it. Having a strong network also. Leila mentioned having a WhatsApp group whereby you can go and then say, I'm facing this problem. Someone who's also faced it before can quickly give you tips and tricks on how to get over it. So, yeah, that's what I've been using.
Takatso? Hello, Takatso.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, I'm going to ask you the same question. How have you been able to overcome the challenges that you face? Oh, it looks like we've lost Takatso there. She can barely hear me. Let me go to Leila. Leila, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yes. Just like Chilizi said, we need a mentor. A mentor is very important when you're in this industry. Also, seek advices from your agronomists because they know better. They went to school. Implement as much as possible so you can actually be able to mitigate all the challenges that come. When it comes to weather, unfortunately, I won't say the same because I had planted 5,000 cabbages. And because of the past weather that we had last week with the rain, unfortunately, I lost some of the crops. So, yeah, you can imagine such challenges. There's nothing that you can do about it, but you need to hold your head up high and just move.
And you've got to, you take those losses on the chin, right? As difficult as it might be, Leila.
Exactly.
For those people, Sipe, that maybe have studied other, have studied other fields and are sitting, we know the numbers in as far as the unemployment rate is concerned, and they're looking at farming as a potential avenue to get involved with. What do they need to know? What would you tell them?
Agriculture is difficult, as the other ladies have said. There are challenges. Some of them you can't escape from, but it's a learning game, and the more you do it, the more you'll know. And I think the eventual trade-off, the end results are worth it. It's not, I'm not going to say it's easy, especially if you didn't study it. But if you research it, I think researching it is very important, and decide what you want to go into. Choose something that you can be semi-passionate about, because there are days where you don't feel like getting up to go to the goats. They are noisy, they smell and stuff like that, but you must choose something where you can be passionate about. For instance, crops. Maybe you decide, I like spinach, let me try with spinach. Choose something you're passionate about, research it as much as you can. I would say visit the various departments, because there should be resources in place to assist people who want to get started, but we all know that sometimes they are not available. But wherever you can, if you can, reach a mentor, reach out to someone who's done it, but the most important thing is definitely research.
Chilitsi, when it comes to people learning the skill, and because you've been actively involved in teaching members of the community, teaching learners in your area, what do you find are the challenges in learning the skills around farming? Because there is this impression, right, that people don't farm, and sometimes it's just not true that black people don't know how to farm or they can't farm properly. It's part of a narrative that has developed. So what do you find are often the challenges when it comes to people learning the skill?
Our communities are still a bit resistant and reluctant. They don't like, there's been a narrative that agriculture is like, there are not enough black female successful farmers. So it's just basically a mind game. It's very hard to actually get to the people. Most are reluctant until they see the first harvest. So we started with one garden, and when we started the garden, a lot of people were reluctant. They didn't want to participate in the village. But as soon as they saw the garden greening up. There's a lot of spinach. From the same garden, we're selling spinach weekly. Another person approached us that, listen, I've got a big yard, come and plant in our yard. Second garden, third garden, fourth garden, fifth garden, and that's how we started drawing attraction and growing in one community. From actually actioning it in one small garden, and now more people are now getting interested and curious and hearing the other families say, actually, you can come and buy spinach from me instead of going to town. And the other person realizes that actually, I can also do the same. I can also do the same. So I think that's how we've been able to win the community, and that's how we've been able to grow, by actioning it and people seeing us action it.
So how many people have you been able to help in growing their gardens, Chilizi?
So far, we've got 8 gardens in Magolokwe, and then we've got 2 schools. We've got Banstra Primary School, we've got Bologna Primary School that we're working with.
Wow, that is absolutely fantastic. And where do you see the biggest impact of it? Again, when we think about not only the skill, but also the hunger alleviation opportunity that it also presents.
Firstly, for the families that we're farming in, they now have an income. They now have a job to wake up and go to. They are now running their own business from the resources that they already had and didn't understand that they can use. So one family is now getting out of the poverty, non-food secure space, and they're now creating an employment for themselves. So the aim for us was just to awaken people to the resources that are already at their discretion, to start using them very wisely. They've got water, they've got a backyard. Why aren't you guys farming? So now, why are you guys unemployed? So in some yards, we've got youth. So now these young people are also now going to participate. They are selling, they are marketing their projects, which is exactly what we wanted to get.
Tahato, are you back on the line? It looks like we've still lost Tahato there and still can't reach her. Leila, I mean, I loved what Chilizi has shared around the impact of seeing something be successful, and then you have other members of the community sort of raising their hand, jumping in and saying, look, I want to do this as well. When you are going through your tough moments and feeling like, I don't know if I actually want to continue doing this, what keeps you going?
What keeps me going is the love and passion that I have for the agricultural industry, because as much as it is tough, but whenever I'm at the field, I find peace in what I do. And I have so much love in the crops that I plant. Farming is a noble calling that requires resilience, innovation, and perseverance. So that's what keeps me going.
It's also a very male-dominated industry. In what ways do you experience that?
You know, sometimes you are so demotivated, especially if you find that you're going to certain workshops and you find that it's mostly males in the room and you're the only female, especially because I am a grain farmer. But, you know, that doesn't even make me think twice about what I do. I always make sure that I'm there and I am present in those workshops.
I've got a message here coming through from one of our listeners who says, hi, Cathy. Well done to these young women for reminding us that African women have been farming and feeding our society for centuries. The notion that we're somehow no longer able to farm is totally wrong. Well done, sisters. Jeff in Fentersdorp says, good morning, Cathy. I'm farming with wine, grapes and vegetables. I was funded by the district municipality for startups on the vineyard. Vegetables, I'm on my own. We black farmers and other businesses, funding from government is not guaranteed. And you'll hear different ministries talking about women, youth, people with disabilities. That's just a speech. I really want to congratulate them. Maybe let me just build then on what Jeff is saying about the support that is available to you as young female farmers. Sipe, how much support is available?
Thank you to Jackson for that beautiful comment. Apparently there's support, but on the ground we really see it. You will hear that this funding is available and that funding is available, but it never trickles down to us, small farmers, or even, I would say, the medium to commercial farmers. So when you listen to the budget speech, you hear them talk a lot about they're going to fund this and agriculture that, but it never reaches us. So I would really like to appeal to, especially the Eastern Cape government, to try and assist its farmers. We are out here, we are battling, we are struggling. They fail to even supply things that are not monetary in value, like advisory services and stuff like that. Even that just is a problem. So really, when you start, you mustn't start thinking you're going to get funding. Funding is nice if you get it, but it's by no means a guarantee.
All right. Thanks for that, Sipe. I want to play some of the voice notes that have come through from our listeners.
Good morning, Cathy. Oh, I am in awe of these young women. Just such amazing trailblazers. I just really appreciate how they demonstrate that we have been eating in Africa for centuries, and women have been pioneers and leading in the agricultural space. We have been feeding our families pre-colonial Africa. So this notion that, we somehow do not know how to feed ourselves is incorrect completely. And I'm saying well done to them. I hope they get the support they need. And I just would like to find out, how does the water shortage and issues around electricity, particularly on the poultry farming, how does she manage issues with, if you have to have a hatchery, how does she manage with that? Thank you, Meta.
All right, thanks for the question. Unfortunately, we've lost Tahajo. The line to her simply isn't great. I'm sure she's having load shedding in her area right now. She's out in Jane First, so she won't be able to answer that question. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to take a break. I'm back with more of your voice notes and some of your calls.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Psst. Have you heard? This Friday, 28 February, something big is happening at Dis-Chem. For one day only, Benefit Card members get 30% off fragrances. Yes, your favorite brands. For him, for her, for you. But don't tell everyone. Or do. Just don't miss out. Shop in store or online this Friday at Dis-Chem. Better beauty starts here.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point, still speaking to our farmers in different parts of the country. Let me play the voice notes and then I'll go to the phone lines.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Thank you for bringing such ladies to the program. I normally say the people who were planning the programs of the government from 1994, the intention was good, but unfortunately it fell into the hands of people who don't have hearts to develop other people. The last speaker says there are programs. Yes, there are programs that can assist people to get into farming, but unfortunately, from my experience, of my wife's experience, is that resources are only given to the connected few.
Morning, Cathy. I'm one of the agriculture graduates, and since there are no jobs, I also decided to start my own thing. Since the land is very scarce to find, I spoke to the school and I was granted a piece of land and I got funding. And Cathy, I'm telling you, my tools were stolen. And the school told me it's a break-in, but it's a very weird one. So currently, as I'm talking to you, things are standing still because I have no tools to continue with my business. I would like to ask for assistance.
Guys, it's Cathy here. Can you please ask your guest how has it been on breeding livestock, like the Brahman and all that? And where do they prefer getting them? Do they buy them from the auction, from individuals, or do they groom them while they're still young and all that? Can you please find out for us? And where can we, if someone is looking for them, can they find them cheaper? Normally, because normally they depend on the province also. And also those who farms meat master sheep, where in which like part of the country the market is a bit affordable, because I know breads it does have good pricing. Thank you.
Hi Kathy, it's Tabiso Pagwa from Wanchabileng. Thank you for bringing topic like this ones because they are encouraging other youth. We want more youth in agriculture because it's very important for our food security. May our government please intervene and helping young people to come to agriculture, give agriculture support so that we can protect our food security because we are afraid of food insecurity. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those voice notes and questions. Z, let me squeeze you in here before I get back to our guests to give their responses.
Thank you, Susie. There are a lot of opportunities potential in agriculture, particularly in the Eastern Cape. But the problem is a support system that is non-existent. And for those who are waiting for government to start whatever they want to start, they will wait for a long time, my sister. In short, let me say to congratulations, they must continue doing what they are doing. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, MZ. All right, Sipe, let me give you a chance to come in, maybe even respond to the question that was asked by one of our listeners.
Thank you, Cathy. In relation to the question about the Brahmans, so I do understand that auctions are available. If you find a credible one, you can purchase from them. I purchased my Brahmans from a individual here in the Eastern Cape in East London. I would caution people to research thoroughly before purchasing any animal. Make sure you go to the farm and see the actual animal, because a lot of our people have been scammed by trying to purchase livestock online via WhatsApp, etc. So I would caution people, please go to the actual farm and see the animal for yourself before you transfer any money, because that is also a major problem that we have of people being scammed.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for that advice. Chilidzi?
I'd just like to talk about the government funding. I don't want to scratch it off completely because I personally have been funded before. And I'd like to just say that we as farmers sometimes don't comply. And we've just become complacent sorry, I'm trying to say this in a nice way, that we just need to do our part, and then our work also must speak for us, so that when the funding opportunities come, you are out there, you are seeing the work seen, and when the application lands on the table, the people who are also going through the applications can say that, but I know this girl, I've seen her work. I think that also contributes to your application getting accepted.
All right. Thanks, Chilidzi. And I think you're making a fair point that, yes, absolutely, apply for funding, but make sure that when the opportunity comes, you are also ready to take it up. Leila, let me wrap it up with you.
There are funders, and there are certain companies that do give out loans. So I would say to the listeners that do seek out, do go out there, and yeah, exactly what Chilizi said, because that's exactly what I wanted to say. But yeah, you do find funders and people who loan. So your work needs to speak for yourself.
All right.
Because despite obstacles like market shifts and climate change, farmers play a crucial role in feeding the nation and shaping a sustainable future. Thank you, Cathy.
Pleasure. Let me thank you all for being part of this conversation and for letting us a little bit into your worlds. That's where we leave it then with that particular conversation for Citizens Corner today. On the other side of the 11 o'clock hour, we're in conversation with Crispin Piri. He's the Minister of International Relations spokesperson. We'll be speaking about South Africa, Russia, Ukraine. Where do we sit in as far as that conflict is concerned?
Top stories at 11. Heavy rains caused damage at Port Shepstone, and Ukraine-US reach an agreement in minerals deal for SFM News. I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Heavy rains at Port Shepstone on the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast have damaged roads, infrastructure and businesses. This has led to extensive damage to some homes, businesses and infrastructure in the eThekwini Metro and parts of the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast. In Port Shepstone, several businesses are clearing their premises of stock to clean and assess the impact of the damage to their stores. Petrol stations in the area have also been flooded. Some small business owners have expressed concern over not insuring their businesses in the wake of such weather events. A Durban man is among those searching for his family members after several people were washed away by floodwaters last night. Mohola Lesotho spoke to SABC News at Cutting Beach in the south of Durban, where search and rescue teams have recovered the bodies of 2 children.
What happened last night, it started around about 10 o'clock, the rain, then it rained and rained. At around about 12 o'clock, then the water started getting inside the house. So he was with his last-born son. As they were trying to get out now to run away from the house, that's when now they met another water, which drove them into the river. That's where now my sister was lost, because the son said he tried to grab him, but now she was too heavy for him, as he was also swept away by water.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says debt sustainability for developing economies is one of the priorities that South Africa will focus on during the finance track meetings of the G20 currently underway in Cape Town. The G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting is hosted by Minister of Finance Enoch Godongwana and Governor of the South African Reserve Bank Lesija Kganyago under South Africa's G20 presidency theme of solidarity, equality and sustainability. Ramaphosa says debt service costs are increasingly crowding out spending on education, healthcare and other social services, as well as infrastructure needed for economic development.
In recent years, low and middle income countries have seen their levels of foreign or sovereign debt and the costs of financing that debt rise substantially. The combined external debt stock of low-income countries more than doubled in the decade to 2022. The work of the International Financial Architecture Working Group and other working groups will be particularly important in improving the common framework for debt treatment.
Unions representing workers at the South African Post Office have expressed their frustration and disappointment with government's handling of the business rescue process at the entity. Appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, the Communication Workers Union says the retrenchment process was poorly handled, while the remaining staff is overworked and underpaid. Nathan Bowers of CWU says the business rescue plan cannot work without necessary funding from government.
Of course the plan is unworkable. Of course, ma'am. It doesn't have the money to move the plan. Go and check. The plan is there. It needs the money to move it. Now, there are rumblings in the workplaces. The workers are not happy. The workers said to me, come and tell those people we are not happy with them. Let's hypothetically say you give us 2 billion of the 3.8. Hypothetically speaking, you give us 2 billion. If you give us 2 billion, we can start to maybe pay the 18 cents in the rand that we owe the workers on their provident fund, remember?
A 49-year-old police officer accused of shooting and killing his son and his girlfriend in Botloko outside Polokwane, Limpopo, has been granted bail by the Morebang Magistrate Court. Constance Sateche, stationed at Botloko Police Station, is facing 2 charges of murder. Sateche allegedly shot and killed Hutso Sateche and Naledi Mnonwa at her home 2 weeks ago. She later called the police. NPA spokesperson in Limpopo, Mashudu Malabi-Zangi, explains.
Sergeant Constance Musibudu Sateche, accused of double murder, is granted bail of 2,000 rand by the Morebang Magistrate Court. The court stated that it is in the interest of justice to grant the accused bail, noting that there is no likelihood of her interfering with investigations or invading trial, and she is the primary giver of a child who needs special care. The matter is postponed to 24 April 2025 for further investigations.
Ukraine says a deal has been reached between Kyiv and Washington on the joint exploitation of Ukraine mineral resources. Details have not yet been made public, but reports suggest that U.S. has dropped some of its more drastic demands. President Donald Trump hailed the deal, which comes after his repeated demands that Ukraine repay U.S. military support provided during Russia's invasion.
Europe gets their money back because they spent it in the form of a loan, and we just gave them, whether it's 300 or 350 billion, nobody really knows. They can't even tell me the answer to that, but it means probably more than that. So what we're doing is now we're saying, look, we want to be secured. We want to get that money back. We're helping a country through a very, very big problem, a problem like very few people have had. But the American taxpayer now is going to get their money back plus.
Recapping the top story, heavy rains at Port Shepstone on the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast have damaged roads, infrastructure and businesses. This has led to extensive damage to some homes, businesses and infrastructure in the eThekwini Metro and parts of the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast. I am Mondelambana for SFM News Headlines at 11:30.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. SuperSport Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The SuperSport Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. SuperSport Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the third and final hour of the show. On this past Monday, the UN marked 3 years since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. At the UN General Assembly, European countries sought to introduce amendments over concerns that the text of a proposed resolution neither mentioned Russia's aggression nor proposed a resolution to the conflict, at least not one in line with the UN Charter. The amendments, however, didn't receive enough votes for passage. Russia and China voted with the United States on passing its one-line resolution, while 5 European countries, including France, Denmark, Slovenia, Greece, and the United Kingdom, abstained from that vote. It's unclear how the US-initiated legally binding resolution will move the peace process forward, as it contains very little substance and it also makes no demands on the parties. It does, however, highlight a widening approach to ending the war between these traditional allies, the US and Europe. Our correspondent in the UN, Sherwin Bryce Peace, filed this report taking a look at what happened on Monday.
Be viewed as a rebuke of the United States, key amendments introduced by France to the US draft inserted language referring to the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation, reaffirming its commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and a just, lasting and comprehensive peace in line with the UN Charter were all adopted by the Assembly, leading to the revised text that saw the United States abstain on its own draft resolution. Ukraine's text received 93 votes in favour, 18 against and 65 abstentions, including from South Africa, while the amended US draft received 93 votes in favour, including from South Africa, 8 no votes and 73 abstentions.
The President.
South Africa called for a different approach to ending the conflict.
Members of the General Assembly, representing the international community, we should, through our words and actions, take actions that promote peace. If you continue doing what we have been doing and it doesn't reap positive results, then we should consider a different approach. We are at the point of inflection in this conflict, with the urgency to seize the momentum towards a negotiated settlement. There is currently an opportunity that is being presented to this Assembly to reflect on the approach to this particular conflict and perhaps take a different path towards peace.
While the UN chief reiterated his call to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva for an urgent end to hostilities in Ukraine.
We begin this session under the weight of a grim milestone, the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in violation of the UN Charter. More than 12,600 civilians killed, with many more injured. Entire communities reduced to rubble, hospitals and schools destroyed. We must spare no effort to bring an end to this conflict and to achieve a just and lasting peace in line with the UN Charter, international law and General Assembly resolutions. Conflicts like the war in Ukraine exact a heavy toll.
Ukraine hosted European leaders to mark the anniversary in Kyiv earlier Monday, while US officials were notably absent. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Well, joining us then for this conversation this morning is Crispin Phiri, who speaks for the Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola. Crispin, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to our SFM listeners. Thanks for having us.
What are we seeing in South Africa's position when it comes to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? South Africa, of course, has previously abstained from resolutions that outright condemn Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Monday seemed to signal something different. What is happening?
Actually, what you are seeing is consistency from South Africa. We had abstained from the Ukrainian resolution, particularly because it doesn't call for the inclusive process to resolving the conflict, as is required in terms of Chapter 6 of the UN Charter. That conflict shall be resolved, through a passive means. And the resolution of the Ukraine that was presented just fell short of that. So it's not a resolution that we voted against, certainly, but it's something that we thought it didn't fulfill a particular element of the charter, and so we abstained from that. But with the resolution that was tabled presented by the US and subsequently amended by France, and ultimately supported by the EU, it had all the elements that speak to the UN Charter, respect for international law, but also importantly calling out the Russian Federation for invading the sovereign and territorial integrity of the Ukraine, which is something that we have consistently reiterated, that what we're seeing in the Ukraine is a violation of the territorial and sovereignty of the Ukraine. But most importantly, what we believe should happen moving forward is both parties being at the table and having an opportunity to resolve this conflict, which is what the UN Charter prescribes.
Crispin, when we look at the record of South Africa in terms of its voting over the last 3 years, the country has abstained from resolutions, particularly those that outright condemn Russia's aggression. Is that not true?
Well, what is required, often people just look at the abstention, but the explanation of vote is exactly what I've given you now. So often then we then table as well an explanation of vote to say, whilst we agree that there has been aggression by Russia that is unwarranted in this instance because there was no immediate threat to Russia, we've said so previously, we do feel that not calling for a process that includes both parties to be at the table to resolve the crisis in the Ukraine is inconsistent with the Charter. And in fact, what we have seen, the opposite has been happening, right? Where we've been seeing the Ukraine being armed to the teeth to continue the war. And we felt that, well, that doesn't resolve the war at all. So the best way to resolve the war is to ensure that both parties are at the table. Interestingly, now we are seeing almost the diametrically opposite happening, where you have other state parties like the US engaging Russia exclusively. Without the Ukraine. I think that has recently changed, but that is something that we too call for as something that is not consistent with the Charter. So our explanation of vote has always been consistent. We have not accepted that Russia has got a right to invade Ukraine. For instance, we've also not agreed to Russia's annexation of Donbass and other territories in Eastern Europe, Donbass, and I think Crimea as well. We've never recognized those as sovereign states or as territorial states of Russia. So our position has been quite consistent with regards to calling out Russia's violation of Ukraine's sovereign and territorial integrity.
What has changed now, Crispin? And I'm listening to you, but I really want to give myself the opportunity to clearly hear what you are saying, because save for the shifting geopolitical landscape, right, that has, as you've clearly highlighted, shifted the US seemingly in the direction of Russia, where the resolution of the conflict now seems to be a conversation between the US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. I'm not aware of any other significant changes that one can see as an inference that has influenced or even shifted South Africa's position when it comes to this very issue of the aggression and how it is worded, Russia's aggression, how it is worded, and whether or not South Africa supports resolutions. So maybe be more clear with me about what it is that is different in Monday's resolution that is different from every other resolution that has been, flouted in the last 3 years, that South Africa has abstained from, that we have not supported.
Maybe just to say that also abstention is not a disagreement, but it's actually to say that there are maybe elements
it's
in
not
the
a
resolution
vote either,
that we do not find are compliant with what we believe should be there. And that is literally what has changed with the amendment that was brought by France, and that's the one that we voted with. it had all of the elements of the charter in place, whereas previously there would always be a one-sided approach to resolving the conflict. I don't know if you may recall, Cathy, the African peace process that was led by peace initiative that was led by President Ramaphosa, and one of the fundamental pillars of that African peace initiative that President Ramaphosa went to both Ukraine and to Moscow, to both to Kiev and to Moscow with, was to say we need both parties at the table to be engaging. And this has been our stance to both Moscow and Kiev, whether we are engaging President Putin or whether we are engaging President Zelensky, that we believe that the ultimate resolution of this conflict would be when both parties are at the table. So if you look at all the resolutions that have been tabled thus far, that element has been missing. And the change has actually come with France's amendment when they amended the resolution to include that element, but also to be clear that they do not believe that Russia has the right to violate the sovereign and territorial integrity of the Ukraine, which was missing from the US resolution as well. Had it not had that element, the US resolution would not have been voted for by us, which it didn't initially. But with the amendment, it then made it clear that it now meets exactly what we have been consistently saying. We agree with the Ukrainians that their territorial integrity has been violated by Russia. And I mean, it's a matter of semantics. That's Russian aggression. Going into somebody's territorial integrity and laying claim on land is a form of aggression. So we agree that that's a violation of your sovereign and territorial integrity. How do we resolve the conflict? And that's where you hear our permanent representative saying we need to approach this differently. We can't keep harping on the same process where we think that we can blast each other out of this conflict. We need to get onto the table and discuss the best way forward together and with the parties that are most affected, most importantly, not unilateral discussions or unilateral decisions.
The US president believes that Ukraine is to blame for this conflict, that Ukraine started this war.
That's his belief, but it's quite clear that this war is a complicated one. Everyone comes from a different vantage point. But we are now in the conflict. And, blaming each other or pointing fingers at each other about who started what and what triggered the war, it doesn't solve it at all. What's more important is the warring parties getting around a table and threshing out what is the cause of conflict and how to then move forward. So the call for a cessation of hostilities is something that we continue to call for, because at the end of the day, it's always innocent people that get harmed in harm's way with all of these hostilities. So the call for cessation of hostilities and then threshing out a way forward at a round table is what we believe is the primary solution.
Of course, the cause of the conflict is integral to unpacking some of the events and perhaps even to any potential solution. But if I'm understanding you clearly, Crispin, what you're saying is that South Africa recognizes that Ukraine's sovereignty has been infringed on, that Russia, in fact, is the aggressor here.
We have said so in so many ways that we do not believe that Russia is justified in its invasion of the Ukraine. That's why we said that we've been clear that the territorial and sovereignty of the Ukraine has been violated, and this is actually a very consistent position that we've taken. It's not a new position, and we've said so on many occasions that the Ukraine are entitled to say that their sovereignty and territorial integrity has been violated, and which goes against the spirit of the UN Charter.
We've previously also taken a position, yes, we may have said that we are a neutral player, but it hasn't always been perceived as such, because on the one hand we'd speak neutrality, while on the other we are also affirming our historical ties with Russia, affirming that Russia is a friend of ours. We will stand by Russia, come what may, effectively. Has that position changed, Crispin?
I think there's a big misconception about our position and our foreign policy's philosophy, and often people then use this word neutrality along the word non-alignment. And these are not the same concepts at all. Non-alignment is a philosophical disposition which has 9 principles to it. One of those is respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. But it also is at the heart of it the idea that we are not going to be the plaything of other countries. So we're not going to be on the beck and call of Moscow or Washington for that matter. Our foreign policy is independent. And over time, people have now conflated this with neutrality. Yes, we have historical relations with Russia. It is nothing that we cannot, it's not rather with the USSR. It's something that we cannot deny, and it's something that comes deeply from where we come from. In our struggle for liberation as a country, we have historical ties with many other countries who may not be necessarily friends of other nations of the world. So that is something that is a historical fact, and we will continue to assert. But it doesn't mean that we are on the beck and call of a particular state and we would do their bidding. It would mean that we exercise our foreign policy independently, and we exercise our views as we see the situation. And it means at times we will disagree with people that we know we have a long-standing historical relationship with. At times we will agree. And in this instance,
does Pretoria disagree with Russia now in terms of what seems to be the changing approach to finding some kind of resolution to the conflict there?
I think people want to frame it as a change in approach because you have a US-centric lens, but it's not a change in approach when we consistently say a principle of non-alignment is respecting the sovereign and territorial integrity of a state. It is there. It's a firm principle that we continue to apply, whether it's Russia or whether it's the US in Afghanistan or in Gaza. It's the same principle that we have applied consistently. But I think if you look at it from a US-centric approach, which is definitely has been the normative view, if you like, for the past couple of months, then suddenly
but Crispin,
these are seen as
if you agree with the shape that the conversations around resolving the conflict in the Ukraine seem to be taking currently.
We don't agree.
Where there seem to be negotiations or talks taking place between the US and the Russian president. The Ukrainian president has, of course, also expressed concerns about being left out of the table, the EU equally expressing its own concerns around this.
We don't agree when we didn't agree at the first point. At the first point, the Russians were excluded from the table. Everyone was having a discussion outside of the Russians. And we said you need both parties to be at the table. Now the tables have shifted. The discussion is happening outside of the Ukraine. So now the Ukrainians are being excluded. Ukrainians are being excluded from the table. So this has been our consistent position, that for you to resolve this conflict, you need both parties to be at the table. Whether it's the Russians or it's the Ukrainians, both of them need to be there. Engaging President Zelensky's peace plan as well. These are things that we put to him to say, we understand your peace plan and we see it because it is important that you take the initiatives as people who are in the conflict to resolve this conflict. But it will not help if you do it at exclusion of the Russians. And now we are seeing that the Ukrainians are being excluded from the table. So our position has been consistent. We don't agree that the Ukrainians should be excluded. We don't agree that the Russians should be excluded. It should be both parties at the table engaging about this conflict.
At some point, South Africa had positioned itself as being those that could potentially play a role, particularly of mediator within this conflict. And, we saw trips where conversations took place, South African delegations, Ukraine, South African delegations with the Russian president. Has Pretoria spoken to Russia about these concerns raised by Ukraine? Are there any conversations taking place?
There are conversations taking place. You would have seen we've just hosted the G20 where we had the Minister of Foreign Affairs and our Minister of Foreign Affairs for Russia, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, and our Minister engaging. And our position has been clear to them that we think that the African Peace Initiative that we have sponsored through President Cyril Ramaphosa and the AU is a viable solution because it has the principles in place that are compliant with the Charter. We also support other peace initiatives as well that have been tabled by other countries, like the Just Peace Friends resolution. There are a number of other initiatives as well that we are part of to ensure that children in the Ukraine are saved from the current decimation that we're seeing in partnership with the Holy See and the Republic of Canada. So we are really involved in a number of initiatives, and we are able to say this to both parties, that these initiatives that we believe can assist are being tabled and are being considered and must be considered by both parties. Of course, we cannot impose a solution, but we believe that both parties must consider a solution that is based on the principles that are enshrined in the UN Charter. And that's also why at the General Assembly we voted in the manner that we voted in, because we believe that, one, this complies with international law, international humanitarian law as well, but actually makes the UN Charter central. Absent that, Cathy, we will see a situation where people start saying that we can take over land because it's the spoils of war. And that's what you're actually seeing, to be honest, in Gaza, where people are now saying we can turn this piece of land into a resort because it's the spoils of war. We cannot live in a 1932 world order where territorial integrity is violated and people get to conquer land through the barrel of a gun at the expense of the sovereigns of that particular piece of land.
Is Pretoria finding itself in a position, Crispin, where on the one hand you've almost been taken over by the events, and events largely out of your control? And as it goes often, in the geopolitical game, that sometimes you have to realign your strategies to rise up to whatever it is that you're dealing with as and when it happens.
We're finding the opposite, actually. You would have seen the EU really coming closer to South Africa. And that's because...
And South Africa also intentionally coming closer to the EU, by the way.
Well, let's use EU's words.
Probably every other international relations spokesperson associated has been at pains to highlight how the EU is drawing closer to South Africa.
Well, but let's use the EU's own words. South Africa is a reliable and stable partner, which means that our actions are predictable and consistent. So it's not a question of whether we move left because the wind is blowing left. Our foreign policy is guided by a particular set of principles, and when those principles are in place, we move in a particular direction. When those principles are being violated, we move to correct that particular space. So that's been consistent with our action, and you can see it that South Africa remains on a particular track, and people are then realigning to the track. What we have said in our explanations on vote on this particular issue over the past 3 years has been exactly the same. And to see a country like France actually shifting and bringing a resolution that really models what our foreign policy stands for is something that we really think is a step in the right direction, but a commendation on what we've been saying all along.
Yeah, look, Crispin, there may be no permanent friends, but certainly permanent interests, right? So that underpins all of the actions that you're taking at any given point. We're going to continue the conversation shortly. Let's take you to the latest headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines, data released by Statistics South Africa shows that the annual consumer inflation rate increased from 3% in December last year to 3.2% in January 2025. Heavy rains at Port Shepstone on the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast have damaged roads, infrastructure and businesses. And President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa will use its G20 presidency to improve policies aimed at harnessing critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable development. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
#SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. Crispin Phiri, spokesperson for the Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola. The two mics, I'm going to ask you to keep it short for me. Mike in Middleburg, good morning.
Morning, Cathy, and your guest. Thanks for the call here. Cathy, I think we know and we understand the broader context within which this conflict is happening, and we know it stems from the security concerns, of our comrades in arms, Russia. And I think so far South Africa has done its utmost, to strike a balance. So far so good. But then, Cathy and Kirsten, there are an opportunity here. I heard from the news over and over that Zelensky is ready to step down. So can South Africa utilize its presidency of G7, is it G7, G20? Can't it utilize its presidency to fast-track Zelensky's exit? I think that would assist, to attain peace. That would fast-track peace.
Okay, Mike, thanks for that. Mike in Newlands, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. I must admit I'm listening carefully, and I'm afraid I remain as confused as ever before with South African foreign policy. I just don't understand. But let me ask your guest two questions, and thank you so much to him for coming on air and trying to help us understand our policies. One, what would he expect the world to do if South Africa was invaded? Would we be expected to sit around and not fight back and protect our borders? And would we not expect the rest of the world to urgently and outrightly and forthrightly condemn the attack on us as sovereign country? Because we failed to protect Ukraine. Russia attacked Ukraine, and we as South Africa took a wishy-washy kind of attitude. We know full well that Russia and Putin is a psychopath. I mean, the man, I watched women and children being bombed, and South Africa said nothing. I watched an old lady in a car being bombed out of this car with her dog, and South Africa said nothing. Also, I want to ask one other quick question in this. Okay, I don't understand that, but anyway, why do we allow and continue to annoy the rest of the world by having warships come here and exercises that we don't need? We have Russian planes landing in secret at midnight in Waterkloof Air Base. We have Russian ships that come into Simonstown. Why did we not, as foreign policy, just condemn the attack of Russia, of Ukraine, and then South Africa steps back and looks after its own affairs? Because we, sir, have done ourselves no favors by getting involved in this conflict, which was far, far away from us. And we should be looking after ourselves and our jobs. And
All right.
We unfortunately failed. Thank you.
Crispin, let me give you a chance to respond very quickly, please.
Thanks. Let me start with Mike now. I think one of the things that we've consistently said is that we're an independent state and our foreign policy is independent. So, military exercises are done with the US, with any country a number of times. Interestingly, in our case, it only makes the headlines when it happens to be a non-Western state. So even China doing military exercises with us generates headlines with us in this country. But when it's a Western state, it doesn't generate headlines. And why is that? One would want to ask. But I do want to stress, and I think this comes back to this idea, Cathy, of non-alignment versus neutrality. And one of the principles of non-alignment is refraining from acts or threats of aggression or the use of force against territorial integrity or political independence of any country. So by virtue of us saying we assert our non-alignment principles, that is what we stand for. And what we have said is that, continuing to isolate one state in this conflict doesn't help. I think quite correctly the analogy that Mike draws, what would we do if we were invaded? Of course, we would be in a position to try and defend ourselves as much as possible, but we would want a solution that is not conflictual and not violent in nature, and that's what we've been calling for. So the cessation of hostilities is exactly that. It's saying there are hostilities that we do not condone, and we condemn them for that matter, and they must cease forthwith, and people must get to a round table that is at least facilitated by a credible international institution, or if not at least a credible body that helps us resolve the conflict.
Crispin?
To Mike's question,
very quickly, please.
To the other Mike's question, absolutely not. We cannot have a situation where we dictate to another country who must be their leaders and how they must elect their leaders. That also violates the political independence of any country. I mean, Mike, imagine if someone did that to us, our arms would be up in the air. In fact, I remember a party saying they wanted some other country to monitor our elections, and there was uproar around that. So that's not something that we would do.
Crispin Piri, we're going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you for your time. He speaks for the Minister of International Relations.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We end the show now by talking to the Road Accident Fund, explaining their claim process. As many of you may know, that you can go straight to the fund. You don't necessarily need a lawyer to represent you. Of course, we're hearing increasing stories of victims falling prey to unscrupulous legal practitioners. Macintosh Polela is the head of corporate communication at the Road Accident Fund. Macintosh, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning. I hope you're well, and good morning to your listeners.
Yeah, let's begin then by explaining this claims process that individuals are able to take up themselves. How does it work? And particularly this rough one form, what is it?
So what we did from a couple of years ago, the legislation as it stands makes it very difficult for claimants to come by themselves. And so we did a pilot where we wanted to test the systems if it was ever possible for people to successfully claim by themselves. And as it stands, we have 3% of people that are claiming from us that are coming by themselves, and 97% are still using the lawyers. So one of the things that we did during the pilot was to introduce the RAF1 form, which was a simplified process of claiming, which basically gives you a list of documents that you need to be able to claim. Because what we find mostly is the claims that we have as part of the backlog, which are over 200,000, is where people are just not coming forward with a full complement of documents so that we can process their claims. And so the RAF1 form was meant as a guide to say, bring these forms and we're able to settle your claim within 120 days, as stipulated in the RAF Act.
And since implementation, have you found that it has worked? What has been the turnaround time that most claimants experience?
It does work. I mean, we've had instances where, for instance, we've had people who have claimed through lawyers and they've had their claims sitting for 3 years, and then they fire their lawyers and they come by themselves. And we are able to settle their claims within, say, 120 days, sometimes 3 months. And we have, believe it or not, settled a claim in Pretoria within 48 hours. And the person couldn't believe that when we were calling them, they thought it was a scam. So, yeah, it does happen that we settle claims very fast. You just have to give us a full set of documents. Unfortunately, we have people who submit their claims and they forget to submit their ID. And when they've come by way of attorneys, they don't bring us the power of attorney document. So because when you claim from us, we need those documents, your comprehensive health report, your police report, your power of attorney if you've claimed through a lawyer. So we are able to settle claims within a stipulated period, provided you give us a full set of documents. And what we find is that when people come by themselves, they're quite keen to settle their claims, and they are able to provide us with all the documentation that we need.
Who can claim, Macintosh?
Well, the people that can claim are, an injured person, a person who was involved in an accident, a dependent of a person who has died in an accident. You can claim when a loved one has died, because we also provide for loss of earnings in this regard. A close relative who paid for funeral expenses can also claim for a person who died in a car accident. And we also encourage, parents or legal guardians of minor children to claim. Foster parents, we encourage them, and an executor of an estate in case the person who was involved in an accident is deceased.
When it comes to the criteria, and I think often you'll find this is what leads people to bringing on board legal practitioners, because they could well not be clear around whether or not they meet the criteria to claim in the first place. So where can people go, and is that criteria simple enough for people to understand?
So for people to claim, they can simply go to one of our regional centres when they can be guided and be given an option whether or not they want to claim by use of an attorney or by themselves. And this is where we provide a guide. And one of the things that we've done is in 2023, in October, we introduced a contact centre, which makes it easier for people to get to us. And it even has a please call me option, or you can simply buzz us and we call you back. And the number is 087 820 1111. And these are all the ways that we try to, simplify the process of claiming and be able to explain to people, what happens or what the criteria is for claiming. For those that have access to the internet, can also go to our website, which is www.raf.co.za.
Let's talk about the funeral claim benefit that you spoke about a little bit earlier on. How does it work, and what is it that the RAF would pay for?
So the way that it works is when a deceased person, the relatives come to claim to us, there are things that we cater for, and there are things that we do not cater for. For instance, we do cater for the transportation of the deceased body, for the provision of a coffin, and in other instances a burial shroud, depending obviously on the religion or the preference of the family. We do also cater for the preparation of the deceased body and the storage of the deceased body at a mortuary, arranging for the issuing of a death certificate, burial or cremation, and again, depending on the preference of the family. We also pay for the hiring of the equipment, for the lowering of the coffin into a grave, and we pay for grave fees as well. But we must emphasize that there are things that we do not pay for. For instance, we do not pay for your catering, for your flowers, your tombstone, family transport, and for a funeral program.
Does this happen real time? Because, of course, burial processes are often things that have to move quite quickly. So how soon are these funds available from the RAF?
So for us, it's not like when you have like a cover where, a funeral cover. No. What we do is we pay for your expenses. So you do conduct a funeral, after the funeral, then you start the claiming process. So the claiming process is your expenses, the expenses that you've paid when the funeral was conducted. So we don't do it prior like you would have with a funeral cover.
So effectively then what you would expect claimants to do is have a record of all the expenses that they have incurred so that they're able to claim.
Indeed, this is very, very important because often people don't pay attention on what they're paying for and keeping slips of, what they've done. And we encourage the claimants to do so if a person has died by way of a car accident. Keep a track record of what you paid for and then come to the Road Accident Fund and to claim those expenses so that we pay your money back.
Let's talk about the undertaking. And that is, of course, apart from the compensation that is often paid to claimants.
So undertaking, and this confuses a lot of people, and people always ask us, what is undertaking? Undertaking is, it applies where people are going to need more care after the accident, especially after coming out of the hospital. In other words, we take care of your expenses now and your future expenses as well. And one of the things that we take care of is in the instance that you are, for instance, rendered paraplegic or you are paralyzed, we go to the extent of, remodeling your home and giving you a device that you're going to need to be able to move around. Let's say we give you a wheelchair. We will then remodel your home so that it allows you to be able to move around without any obstacles. But also, we allow you to nominate a person as a caregiver. Now, it's up to you who you nominate. You can nominate your sibling or your cousin or the person that you're comfortable with. And we pay for the caregiver to be able to look after you 24 hours if that's what you need, depending on the hours that you need with the caregiver. That's what the undertaking refers to.
Macintosh Polela is the head of corporate communication at the Road Accident Fund, and this conversation has been brought to you by the Road Accident Fund. That's where we leave it for today on The Talking Point. Show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively, at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Day 15. Location undisclosed. Mood brave. Music Eye of the Tiger. Dear Diary, it's been 2 weeks of epic challenges against some of the most memorable and epic Survivor contestants. I have endured some harsh weather conditions, unbelievable drama, and these fire tokens have given me and the other contestants a second chance to stay in the game. Food. I feast on the defeat of my enemies. Vumi over there is busy planning and scheming, thinking that he can get me off the island. Never mind though. I will win this and take home $2 million. We're gonna be rich, Papa.
Rich Goopy Wanaponani, are you doing that thing again? Come and get your dinner, Mr. Fake Diary Sessions. We're now on Survivor. Oh, the world will fall.
Catch Survivor Season 40, Winners at War, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Starts 27 February on S3. Open up.
S3.
Dis-Chem's Beauty Fair is here. It's time to treat yourself at your fabulous fragrance destination. Big date coming up? Find a fragrance that makes it unforgettable. Crushing it in the boardroom. Make an impression before you even speak. From fresh and floral to bold and unforgettable, get your perfect fragrance match at Dis-Chem's Beauty Fair. Hurry, deals end 16 March.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station.
Billy's phone, the more his smile taunted her. The curl of his lips seemed to rise in a sinister smirk, payback for her snooty attitude when he had arrived perfectly on time and as agreed for her interview. Her embarrassment rose like a hot flush. Seriously, Tobile snatched back her phone. This is his fault. Zola felt her mouth go dry. Her tongue felt too big. The room grew smaller, hotter. Thinking of how she had left the coffee shop, she wished her body would drop into the ground and be swallowed whole. And now, Tobile giggled, sitting down next to her sister and zooming in on the smiling Mbali on her phone. Is he that hot in real life? Zola's vision was blurred with tears and her chest tightened. How could she have been so stupid? Get her water, Nomsebenzi told Tobile, and hurried to Zola's side to fan her furiously with the thin cutting board she'd been using. It wasn't the cold air or her mother's muttering that snapped Zola back. It was the smell of onions. Everything her mother cooked started off with onions fried in oil that was too hot and was followed by a cube of beef stock. It didn't matter if she was cooking cabbage or chicken or fish. Everything Nomsebenzi cooked tasted the same to Zola, flavored with her mother's tired choices. The too familiar smell would mark every evening of her life if she didn't fix this. He was there, Zola croaked. The swirling confidence of her rant evaporated. And what? He just ignored you. He probably just didn't see you, Tobile offered, handing Zola a cold glass of water. Just send an email and clear it up. No, Zola moaned, gulping down the water so quickly she almost choked. I was expecting a woman, so I... The memory of Mbali's face came back clearly, his Colgate smile, the smell of his cologne wafting across the table to her as bile rose in her throat. She did what? Mtunzi laughed into his drink. Mbali ran his hand over the smooth skin of his scalp and called her face to memory. He was still intrigued by the woman who'd sat across from him so indignantly before she just upped and left. That was the last thing he'd expected. I'm telling you, brah, she just called me a creep and headed out. Mbali shrugged. I don't know, man. I was literally maybe 2 minutes late, but she obviously took it personally. Zola's CV was still open on his laptop as he snapped it closed and cleared his desk. His office was a small, musty room in one of the many office buildings his father owned. It was an insult to the suave persona he put out on social media, but it was a start. A start he had hoped to make along with one overqualified